Chapter 16. Caden. When I woke and opened my eyes, lying behind me was Sean in his briefs. I immediately smoothed my hands down my legs. Thank God I wasn't naked. I wasn't ready for a relationship, now that I'd decided that it was more important to get myself established with my own business. I had time for that, and after making love to Grayle, a whole new world had opened up to me. I never thought about being a top, and having a man as handsome and beautiful as Grayle underneath me. I felt the surge of arousal by my thoughts of him, and I could no longer look at Sean snoring next to me. I wondered if Grayle snored. He looked as if he didn't do anything that normal people did. He was all that I dreamed about as I came into manhood. When I claimed him, being inside him made me happy that I was gay. I'd never felt more alive than then. Grayle had made that man in me come alive by offering me his strong body, and I wasn't afraid anymore of my own sexuality or my own desire for another man. Therefore, it became impossible for me to stare in another man's face without realizing that he wasn't Grayle, and Gray was the one I needed now, but couldn't have. I turned over, swinging my arms, and they landed over a warm body, and I came face to face with someone with his morning alcohol breath. I turned around once more to navigate myself and climb out of the bed, after realizing that I was in the middle and another guy had passed out in front of me. I climbed over Sean, trying not to wake him, but I guessed I wasn't successful because Sean stirred and I heard him say, "Where are you going? It's still early?" I stood in the dim-lit room to face Sean while holding my cock, intending to rush to the toilet. I raised my hand and said, "I'm in a hurry. Tell me that door is the restroom." "Yes. The secret is out. I have an indoor toilet," he joked. I didn't catch his humor because it was too early to find anything funny, especially after I discovered that I'd been sleeping between two guys who were almost naked and practically strangers. The last thing I remembered, we were horsing around and playing a game where we'd shed our clothes, piece by piece. We had a bottle of Russian vodka where we'd pour a shot for each one. On my way to the restroom, I'd stepped over the empty bottle and jeans. Finding my way inside the restroom, and after relieving myself, I searched around for a new toothbrush or something to wash the night out of my eyes, because I didn't have time before I had to be at the shop, and Lane had probably called me, leaving me all kinds of "fuck you, get your ass over here now" messages on my phone. Raking my fingers through my hair after washing my hands, and after using them to rinse out my mouth, I found something to gargle with. When I realized the mouthwash had more alcohol in it than the shots I was downing all night long, I murmured, "What the fuck? Why am I hiding? I'm entitled to one fuck up, right?" I questioned, squinting at a vision in the mirror that resembled me. I sighed. 2 fuck-ups if you counted Grayle and not listening to him, and Austin because I'd confronted him and he knew my intentions and used what I'd said to attack me. And how could I forget Zach, which had been the biggest fuck-up of them all? I wondered what had happened to his edgy ass. Opening the cabinet and looking for a new razor, the door peeled open, and Sean entered. He strolled over to the commode and urinated. I tried not to look, because I was pretty sure I hadn't had his cock in my mouth. Hopefully, if I was drunk enough, it would have been my cock in his mouth. Staring into the mirror, glancing at my unruly hair, reddened cheeks, and puffy lips, I passed my fingers over my bottom lip when Sean wasn't looking. There was no way I'd sucked anyone's cock, I convinced myself, but it looked puffy just like that when I'd done it to Grayle. I couldn't think about this now, because no doubt these guys would point that out if given the chance. Youthful exuberance had a way of thinking that everything was okay, and to say anything that came to mind, but I didn't want to hear from anyone who was 19 and still in the teenage stage that I had been so drunk as to suck any one of them off. That thought gave me chills. I had to get the fuck out of here as soon as possible. After Grayle, I'd made a promise to myself that he'd be the only man I'd ever go to my knees for, and it certainly wouldn't be that 18 or 19-year-old teenager. Do you hear yourself, Caden? You're treating Sean the same way you objected to Grayle treating you. I couldn't think about it now. I had to get to my coffee and tea house. Do you have any extra disposable razors? I questioned, looking at my choices laid out on the counter. You can use mine if you'd like. No, I wouldn't like. Razors were too personal, and the one I saw looking at me, I could swear there was a pubic hair sticking out of it. I was all for manscaping, and it had its place, but his hair was thicker than mine, and looking at all the hair on his arms and legs, I said, I hope you know that I had a great time, but it would have been much better if I didn't drink as much. Now I have to go because I have this business I own, I reminded him. I know. And thanks for coming by. I didn't think a man like you would talk to me anyway, and to wake up and see you lying near me was more than I could hope for. I didn't know how he visualized me, perhaps in the same light that I saw Grayle, and now I had an admirer. I felt pretty good to know that I could have someone who saw me not as myself, but as a man he could respect. But with his regard for an older man of 22, I did know that my cock didn't twitch, my heart didn't race, and I didn't think I wanted to spend my life with Sean as I'd thought about doing with Grayle. Now, I had to question my attraction to men older than myself. Perhaps I'd find the answer with Sean. I smiled at him, placed my hand on his shoulder, and he reached and his palm rested over my hand and his eyes smiled. Today was going to be a long day because I hadn't gotten enough sleep, and I'd promised Grayle's father that I'd bring him a milkshake and spend some time with him. I sucked in a large breath because I couldn't figure out what to do with Sean. As much as I liked the attention, I had committed myself to a business, and the sure way to fail was to neglect it. I'll see you around, I said, dropping my hand and staring at Sean, who had managed to change his briefs and tee and hop back into his jeans, while I was trying to come up with something to say to him, an excuse if I had to, and disguise the hangover I had. When I had gotten myself together as much as possible with the same underwear and same clothes from the night before, Sean stopped me before I walked into the bedroom to search for my shoes. He reached for my hand, which surprised me. I need some coffee. Do you mind if I tag along? When I took too long to come up with an answer, he added, I'll walk back to my apartment once I get my coffee. Well, that's a relief. Get his coffee and go home. I smiled at him and agreed that he could accompany me. Maybe Lane wouldn't be as caustic with his curses. I hoped he'd hold his tongue once he saw Sean. It wasn't that I was using him as a shield, but I needed something, because I knew I was dead wrong the way I'd approached being responsible. I'd always been the dependable one and not Lane, but now that wasn't true anymore. We ambled out of Sean's apartment, and I was surprised that everyone had cleared out and gone their merry ways. His friend was still lying in that large bed, unaware that we'd left, which was great, because I didn't want to be confronted by anyone now. I had to face Lane in 5 minutes, and I was sure it wouldn't be pretty. When we hopped into my Wrangler, Sean turned to me. Do you think you would want to go to the movies with me? I'd shot him a ghost before by not showing up at the concert. So why would he want to take me anyplace? I questioned. We'll see. You're not dating anyone, and I thought you would want to hang out. We could go to the beach and camp out and do fun things. I wasn't a person who liked to go camping, especially since my last debacle of getting lost in the woods. I'll let you know, but first I have to park and get some coffee before I can give you an answer. I have to check my schedule, I said, turning around and opening the door. I was not surprised by the reception I received from Lane. Well, if it isn't The Lost Weekend. That was one of Lane's favorite old movies, where Ray Milland stayed drunk and ruined all his relationships. The surprise came in the form of Grayle, and when I thought he'd leave me alone to recover from my lost weekend, he confronted me with his own truth.